Thank you all. Thank you for sticking with us. I know it has been a long morning, and I just feel like I have to say governance, budgeting, and management, oh my, because it seems like you guys have had a whirlwind of various terms and information put at you. We want to do something a little different. We're not going to inundate you with slides and PowerPoints and that sort of thing. Dr. Shelton and Mr. Russell and I were in firm agreement that let's keep this light and informative and have you provide as many questions as possible. We do have questions that we have created and feel like they'll be the responses will be pretty insightful. So we will start with our questions, but I want to let you know, please know that we are definitely here for you, and this session is one that I hope will be a little more interactive. So with that, let me just say, public community colleges are complex organizations, and if we haven't seen that in the last couple of sessions, I think we know that now. With their budgets, their financial reports, and their accounting rules, those all can be daunting. Most trustees don't have a specialized background in finance or accounting. However, stewards of public funds and resources, trustees need to learn key fiscal concepts, gain understanding of how to read budgets and financial reports, and know how to assess appropriate controls and audits to ensure fiscal stability and, most importantly, accountability. With an all funds appropriation for higher education totaling over $20 billion for fiscal year 18-19, it is imperative that trustees learn enough to know what questions to ask and to be able to understand the answers. As a trustee, you are in a very enviable position. You are only one of 400 in Texas entrusted to govern our very important 50 community college districts. Your collective service will set the course for achieving our new 60 by 30 strategic plan. In your role, you have a vested interest and opportunity to improve and accelerate the post-secondary attainment rate of over 730,000 students in our public colleges, so no pressure. This conference serves as a first step, I believe, for you to become a more astute and knowledgeable trustee. Clearly, there are people in this audience who have served in that capacity for many years and can also provide a network of support for you. But please know that my panel colleagues are here to address your questions and the questions that we've provided. If I can put in a short pitch, you've heard about the Community College Association of Texas Trustees. So I'm the director of of Trustee Strategies. I'm very new to this role. I'm 2 months into it. But I want to tell you that I really want to invite all of you to come to our annual conference that's going to be held in June in Fort Worth, which is where our president-elect serves as a board member for Tarrant County College. And it will be a wonderful opportunity for you to learn, if you haven't already been a part of the Achieving the Dream Board of Trustees Institute. We are embedding a lot of those wonderful strategies for you as trustees to take back to your presidents and really have a clear strategic plan in terms of assisting in the equity, the access, and the success of your individual campuses. We really want you to roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty in terms of really coming out of that conference with a really good plan of what you want to help your president achieve in terms of student success. So with that, I want to welcome our two esteemed presidents. We have Dr. Miles Shelton, who is president of Galveston College. And Dr. Shelton is celebrating his 10th anniversary as president, as I was reading your bio. 10th at Galveston.
My 19th year as president.
Yes, I stand corrected. So 10th at Galveston College. So congratulations on that. Dr. Shelton was the president of Clarendon College for 8 years. Before that, he held a variety of leadership positions at Hill College in Hillsborough, including vice president of instruction and student services, associate dean of students, registrar, director of admissions and records, and director of computer services, and also was a part-time instructor. Dr. Shelton is a member of several professional organizations, including TAC, the Texas Association of Community College Presidents, Texas Community College Teachers Association, and the American Association of Community Colleges. He has served on a number of economic development corporations, chambers of commerce, the Boy Scouts of America, and Lions Club. Dr. Shelton received his bachelor's degree in history, master's in economics, and doctorate in educational administration from Baylor University. So please help me welcome Dr. Shelton. Our second panelist is James Henry Russell. Mr. Russell is president of Texarkana College. He is the 8th president of Texarkana College and began his term in June of 2011. Texarkana College is a comprehensive community college established in 1927 with over 7,000 students enrolled annually. President Russell's professional experience include working as a licensed CPA and as a former superintendent of the Texarkana Independent School District. So he brings a great set of, I'm sure, skills with that past position. He has served as the community, as past chairman of the Texarkana Chamber of Commerce, the United Way of Greater Texarkana, and president of his Rotary Club. He has also served on several state committees, including his election to the TA Commissioner's Cabinet of Superintendents. So please help me welcome Mr. Russell. All right, so we have a couple of questions that I want to start off with, and then, like I said, I welcome your participation in this as well. Let's begin with a hopefully not as in the weeds question. Can you share the importance of the role of a community college trustee or regent and his or her key financial management responsibilities?
Sure. Good morning. Let's start off talking about role and responsibility of the board, and there's many roles that board members play, and you've already heard some of the decisions and important things that board members have to do, such as select the CEO. But when it comes to the finances of the institution, you play a very important role, and one of those is ensuring that the institution, the organization, has adequate financial resources to accomplish its mission, its purposes, and its goals. And by the way, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that you're responsible for setting the mission, purpose, and goals of the institution. So it's a big job when we start thinking about that. You're setting the mission, you're setting the goals, and you're responsible for ensuring the adequacy of the resources to be able to accomplish that. But you also have responsibilities for providing financial oversight and protecting those assets of the institution. So it's a big job that you have, and you have to do it within the concepts of legality and the legal standards and the ethical standards that we embrace in community colleges in the state of Texas. And perhaps I can explain that by talking about it within the concept of 3 duties. A duty of care. As a board member, you have a duty to care for the organization. You are a steward for the assets and the financial resources of that organization. You have a duty of loyalty. It's a standard of faithfulness, an allegiance. So when you're making decisions, financial decisions, you have an allegiance to how that decision affects the organization, and you have to act in the best interest of that organization. And you have a duty of obedience. Now, that sounds a little strange, obedience, but it's a trust that the public has placed in you. Think about this. A trust, let me say that again, a trust that the public has placed in you to act in the best interest of the college and of your students. So duty of care, duty of loyalty, duty of obedience drive those roles and responsibilities of the board members to ensure adequate financial resources and a protection of the assets and financial oversight that you have. And then that drives us to the things that you do in terms of approving budgets and evaluating financial policies and reviewing financial reports. And let me just say, if you're not getting that information, red flags ought to go up and bells and whistles ought to go off, because regular financial reports are very important for you to be able to do your job. So with that, I'll pass the mic.
Thank you. Good morning. It's an honor to be here today. I know we've got a lot of new trustees in the room, and I will tell you, I think I still feel like I associate with you. I've been at Texarkana College now 6.5 years, and that's also the amount of time that I have been in higher education. It's really kind of hard to believe it's been 6.5 years, but when I'm sitting next to an expert that's been a president for 20 years and that, it is a little intimidating. But I will tell you the power of community colleges is the room that you're sitting in, and it's the 50 community colleges in the state of Texas. I have found this group to just be the nicest people that you will find anywhere. When I arrived at Texarkana College in June of 2011, I knew there were some problems. The whole community knew there were some problems. A lot of them really focused, everybody thought around the financial area, but nobody really knew how much. About a week in, I realized that the college was losing $800,000 a month. There was $17 million in the bank about 3 years ago. There was only $2 million left, and we were literally 2 to 3 months of running out of money and not being able to make payroll. And I knew practically nothing about community colleges. But I'll tell you, I went to the TAC group and I went to the East Texas Presidents group, and I just got surrounded by the greatest group of people that shared everything with us to help us get a lot of things corrected. And we're by no means perfect at Texarkana College today, but we're still open and we're still there, and we're pretty proud of that. It's been a fun ride the last few years. But being here today is probably one of the best things you can do for the financial management responsibility you have of your college. When you saw the screen earlier of tax rates, you need to know where you are. You need to know where you rank. When you saw the screen on tuition, you need to know where you are. You need to know where you rank. Community colleges 25, 30 years ago, I'm not going to say financing of the colleges was easy. I don't think finances are easy anywhere at any time. But I tell you what, today it is difficult. And if you look over the last 10 or 20 years, there has been a dramatic shift in this financial responsibility and the management and how hard locally you have to work and the pressure. And if you're not paying attention, if you kind of just put some blinders on and say, we've been around for 90 years, we've got $17 million in the bank, we're going to keep doing exactly what we've been doing, you'll be surprised how quickly a very strong organization that everybody takes for granted in your community can quickly fall and come close to failing. We're kind of the perfect case example of how that can happen if you're not paying attention to what's going on around the rest of the state. You've got to watch the legislative session. The CAT group is really becoming a good, strong group with great leadership and good information. It's fun to listen to what your peers are doing. I get jealous a lot of times when I hear what they're doing, but it helps me to set good visions and goals for the future. And probably the most important thing I'm going to say out of anything today is pay attention to where you are in the state related to others. All of us have unique circumstances and reasons, but understand why you're where you are and learn as much as you can from others. And don't be afraid to ask the dumbest question there is, because I promise you I have asked it. They may have laughed after I walked off, but you're really surrounded by institutions and people that want everyone to be successful. I've yet to find the community college that is absolutely flush with money and has nothing but rich students with a mom and dad at home that are setting a path for them, and all they're interested in is a fraternity and a sorority or a good time. That's not who most of us are, and I really like who we are. And I see a lot of trustees and college employees that their main concern is giving the students in our communities a chance to have a great life, and that's a fun cause to be a part of. So thank you for having us here.
All right. The next question I had, we've heard a lot about strategic planning, and so I thought that was important to ask. What is the role of the board in the strategic planning process?
Okay. I mentioned a while ago that it's the board's responsibility to set the mission, the purpose, the strategic plan for the college. And planning should always drive budget and financial decisions. But if I can, let me distinguish between a strategic plan, maybe a long-range plan or an operational plan. A strategic plan is developing a shared vision for the future. It drives the rest of your planning process. 60 by 30 is a strategic plan. It's a vision for the future for Texas. And I hope you have a vision for your colleges for what the future looks like, not just 5 years or 10 years down the road, but a long-term vision for the future that you share throughout the institution. And it's your responsibility to make sure that that's in place. And then that drives your planning process, your operational, your annual things that you do. What strategies, what action plans you come into play with. And so it's a very important role, and all of that then drives financial decisions. And your budgets and your financial decisions should embrace the goals that you have in your planning process. It does no good to say we need to improve our student services, or we need to improve our advising, or we need a development office and not fund those. If you're going to have a development office, you need to have money to make sure it's properly staffed and organized and structured so that you're out raising the money that you need to raise. The same thing is true with student success. If you have a student success agenda, which I hope you do, you have to be able to fund that and say, not only we're going to fund it, but now what are the metrics that we're going to measure our success by? So the planning is very important. And then the evaluation of that planning on the back end. We funded it, now what happened? Did we get there? Did we get there? Did the technology piece fall flat and why? Or did it work? And what are we going to do for the future? Or did we have a people problem? And okay, if it didn't work, what are we going to do to change that? So it's about planning, but it's also about coming back and saying, did it work? Did it not work? And one of the things that we do at Galveston College is every month we have a student success point on our agenda where we're talking about the metrics of our plans and are we achieving the goals that we've set out to achieve. So the board is part of that discussion every month. Doesn't take long, just takes a few minutes, but it's something that we do every month to keep the board focused on the goals that we've set. And are you focused on the mission? How often do you talk about the mission of the college and the purposes and the strategies that you're trying to achieve through your strategic plan? Something you should do on a regular basis.
I really liked what Dr. Shelton said about every month some point of the strategic plan is being talked about. I think the strategic plan needs to be a living document and one that you really work on all the time and not something once a year you go over and put it on the shelf. There's so many organizations I have seen that do that because it's a requirement. I'll tell you, in my opinion, where strategic planning gets fun, and you don't hear that linked together a lot. But when your daily operations are running very, very well, that is when strategic planning gets fun. When your strategic plan is to be able to make payroll during the year, that's not a lot of fun. It's pretty measurable, but I've been there. And it is, the employees think it's fun when it happens. But I think your first goal in any organization should really be to get to excellence in daily operations of your institution. And then your strategic planning gets to be more big picture and big movements and where you want to tie extra resources to move the college toward ultimate goals. I'll tell you this one too. There are a lot of strategic plans that are 200 pages long and have 100 goals. And you may be able to implement those and you're much better than I am. I like a very simple strategic plan with 3 to 5 big goals that are measurable. I like looking out long range into the future, there's no question. But I also like to know in the 2017-18 year, were we successful with our strategic plan? So the board ultimately approves the plan. The board has to be a big part of it. My board tells me all the time, we're not the experts in this, we don't spend the time, we really want you to drive a lot of that. I appreciate that. And our leadership group works a lot, but we thoroughly enjoy the board helping set those 3 to 5 big things they want to see accomplished for the community and the college. So we'll work together on brainstorming ideas, and we'll start feeding the board information. But the board really helps narrow it down. Joe May at Dallas Community College District did a neat exercise with us a couple of years ago where the TAC presidents all had dots. And we had, 20 main things up on the board, but we only got 3 or 4 dots each. So we started funneling it down to a smaller group. And that's what we do with our trustees. I mean, we have the boards all around the room, and they get dots. And then when it's all set and we have our 5 to 10 goals and different vision statements, I then give our trustees, and I know it's kind of elementary, but it's fun, I give them 4 gold stars. And I really want to see in our trustees' view who represents our community, what are the 2 or 3 main, again, daily operations have to run, the college has to be in excellent condition, all the baseline stuff just has to be given. But what are the 2 or 3 things the trustees really want to see accomplished in the next 12 months? And I see it by those gold stars, and we take pictures of it all. Well, a year later, we pull those charts back out. They've got to be measurable, and we clearly see if we did it or not. I like to achieve things. I like to check it off. But if we always hit every one, we probably didn't pick anything large enough, and we didn't accomplish enough. So you have to get into a safe place with working with the leadership team, the president, and the board of trustees. And when you get that way and you realize you're all on the same team and you're going to take some big swings and you're going to miss, it really gets fun. And I enjoy having that kind of interaction with your trustees, because when they put those stars and dots and really help select where we're going, they're invested. They're excited about it. And there's not a lot of finger pointing. It's all of us working together to get there. So strategic planning is the board's ultimate responsibility on voting. And I really like for the board to be involved in it in that way. But I think you do have to get your institution to a baseline that is just required to be there before it gets fun.
Thank you for that. So kind of going along the lines with strategic planning, knowing that's a long-term investment, I thought a question that would be important is, what are the questions that are key for trustees to ask when making these informed and long-term decisions regarding investments?
When we talk about investments, let's be sure we distinguish between that we're not necessarily talking about financial investments. Financial investments are those investments, the funds that you hold in fund balance that you invest in accordance with the Public Funds Investment Act, and that's very specific in how that has to be done. It's driven legally. But when we talk about investments in the college, investments in infrastructure, investments, facilities, equipment, technology, and those are long-term commitments. When you build a new building to serve students, if you need a new nursing health science building, for example, and let's say it's a $40 million building or $50 million building, you're going to have program costs as you open that new building. You're going to have electrical costs. You're going to have salaries of faculty and staff. You're going to have technology. You're going to have new depreciation, $1 million plus a year, hitting your financial statements, and that's going to drive. You heard our CFOs a while ago talk about how decisions today may impact us 5, 10, 20 years down the road, and those, when you decide to give a pay raise, you're investing in people, and that's important. I mean, folks, I want to tell you right now, investing in people is one of the most important decisions you make. What you pay your CEO, what you pay your vice chancellors, your deans, your vice presidents, your faculty. retaining good people is important, and that's an investment in the future. And when you give those raises, it has a ripple effect across the years. And so it's very important to understand that. And so when those decisions are brought to you, those are questions you need to be asking. Will this 10 years down the road cause us to have a tuition and fee increase? Will this decision require an increase in our local taxes? Are we going to get a normal appreciation in the assets of valuation in our tax base? Or are we going to have to raise the tax rate? There's all kinds of questions. And so every decision you make that has financial implications has a long-term ripple effect through your financial statements. And you need to be asking those questions. But at the same time, you need to be investing in the future. It's absolutely important that you envision the future, as we talked about a while ago, through your strategic plan, and then you invest in that future by committing the resources to accomplish that plan.
Austin Community College has some incredible financial models and financial reporting documents that I've tried to copy. So you saw a little bit earlier, Neil showed, I think, a 10-year projection, and I loved what he said. He said it's wrong. He guarantees you that it's wrong. But it's so important to do that, to start thinking 10 years out, because if you're losing $1 million right now and you don't plan on raising taxes or tuition, you're probably going to lose more the next year and the next year and the next year. You've got to be doing something different. So it's a good forecast based on kind of what you're doing right now, and then you can play around with changing things. Because as Dr. Shelton said, if you're going to build that building, it's hard enough to find the cost to do it, but you better think through how you're going to operate it in the future years. Because a lot of us, when we gain students, a lot of times that's more money that you're losing. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but our tuition is very low. And it has been a long, long time since the state of Texas left contact hour funding the same and multiplied it times a 3% inflation for more. The pool of money in Texas for community college funding has basically been the same 1.7 or 1.8 billion for over the last decade. So as all of us bring in more students to go towards 60 by 30, it just gets allocated differently and smaller. That same block is just prorated out differently. So when you get more students, when you build the new building, especially if it's in the health sciences area, your budget better have more money coming in somewhere to cover the custodial, the operations, the new faculty, the new programs. I tell you, one of the things that blew my mind, and I know it's kind of scary that I didn't know this when I came into higher ed, is that if I start a fantastic new program in the wrong year, it's going to be 2 years before I get any state money for it. I don't know if everybody in this room understands that, because it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's the truth. So you've got to cash flow a lot of these things for a good 2 years before you might get any more state money. But if everybody else added a program and they went up in contact hours too and the revenue stays the same, you're not getting any new state money. It's just your contact hour funding goes down. So it's complicated. It's hard to believe. It kind of seems like the better you do, the faster you graduate with less hours and do things, guess what? The less money that you're going to get. So these 10-year projections, seeing where you are, and when you're going to invest in doing new things, really trying to do a 5 to 10-year cash flow model of it is critically important for everyone to understand, and not just so excited that you've got a donor that funded a new building. And I'll take one of those if anybody has it out there.
We're going to open it up for questions because we're about the more than halfway point. So anyone have a question for either or both Dr. Shelton or Mr. Russell, please, by all means.
Until just a few minutes ago, I didn't think it would be part of a strategic plan, but does anyone have a strategic plan that involves educating the trustees? encouraging them to come to events like this, to come to the event that Dr. Martinez mentioned earlier, because I think it's important for fellow trustees, but also presidents, to encourage their trustees to, for lack of a better word, have continuing education, because things are changing. And it's good that we have a requirement that new trustees attend this, but it's equally important that trustees continue to educate them as the things change. I mean, would that be an appropriate strategic plan?
We absolutely agree with you that trustee professional development is very, very important. We do not include it in our strategic plan. We do include it in our long-range plan and our annual plans, and we operationalize that through the budgeting process, where we budget for our trustees to attend not only the CAT meeting in June, but we include the ACCT meeting in the fall. We include the ACCT legislative conference in February, and other opportunities throughout the year for the trustees' development. And we view that as a very, very important thing that we do.
I think that's an awesome question and something we all need to work on. Texarkana's a long ways from Austin. And in years past, our college has really not participated a whole lot in a lot of events. And I'm so proud of the two brand new trustees I have with me, Mr. McGarry and Mr. Moore at the back of the room, that came down for this conference, that are willing to do this. I spent 17 years in the ISD world. And Texas Association of School Boards and their conferences are very well attended by trustees and very active. And they have a very big lobby and a very loud voice. I think that's one thing that has probably hurt community colleges over the last 20 years. We're just really nice people, and we always find a way to do what we get handed. And I think we need to stay very nice people. But there are some powerful trustees in this room, and there are some powerful trustees back in our communities. And if you add in our foundation boards along with this, I think we can stay the nicest people in Texas, but I think we can make our hard work more evident with more voices speaking. I think it's great for the trustees to receive the professional development, but we all know most of the benefit that comes of all these it's the networking, the relationships that you build with other, and that common voice that we start carrying across this very, very large state. But every rep in this state has a community college, every senator, and I guarantee you there are powerful trustees and foundation board members at all of our colleges that if we can do a better job exactly in the area of your saying, we'll get there. I do want to brag on the TAC Association a little bit and the Success Center. Cynthia Farrell has just secured, I think, for all, and I may be saying something wrong, but for all colleges to be able to go and be represented at the Pathways Conference. I hope I'm saying some of that right. Everybody needs to go. Everybody needs to bring a trustee or two and learn about the incredible advancement in graduation attainment we're all receiving by doing some things differently. And there's also some fun there and a great time for trustees to network and go. So I think you've got a great point. I think TAC's doing a good job of putting that as part of their plan. I think you're right. All of us ought to have that as a piece of it.
Another question, I think? Okay.
Your board members to better work with their elected officials in your respective areas. So when it comes time to go to Austin, they have a relationship that actually influences their elected officials to look at community colleges in a much more positive vein instead of what they're doing to us right now. What do you do?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. It's the relationship that you have prior to the session. It's what you do prior to the session. When you get to the session, it's really kind of too late. You can influence things at a certain degree during the session, but the real relationship is built prior to the session in that time of span between sessions. And so it's a matter of bringing our trustees active in the community and active with our local legislators. My board is a division of conservatives and liberals, and so we can cover a broad spectrum of political viewpoints, and using our board members to be active in their respective parties, to work with our respective legislators, whether it's representatives or senators, and then when we have critical issues that our board members are passionate and advocates for those issues, and those views are known to our legislators long before we get to the session. And so, like in this last session, we were part of a coalition that wanted to push the baccalaureate bill through, which was passed in Senate Bill 2118. And one of my board members was absolutely passionate about this. We had worked with him, and he had a great relationship with our representative and with our senator. And he would send our representative text at 2:00 in the morning during the session, going, "How's it going? Tell me where we're at on the baccalaureate bill." Okay, now, and he may or may not get an answer at 2:00 in the morning, but he had no reservation about sending that text. And then the next morning, there was a response. And then another instance, there was a critical point at the end of the session where, again, things looked like they might be stalling out. And he's on the phone calling them and texting them and saying, "What can we do? What's going to happen?" And within an hour, we had a breakthrough and the bill moved forward. So, I mean, that relationship is exactly right, and it has to be cultivated prior to the session. So having your representatives, your senators on campus, when you have an event on campus, do you invite your local city councils, your county commissioners, your state representatives, your state senators? Do you look for avenues to not only build a relationship with them, but to introduce the college and its programs and services to them, so when they get to the session, they know you. They don't have to think about it. And when they see something come up during the session, they're calling you. "Hey, what about this? How's this going to affect your college? What's this going to do to you?" And when you get them asking those questions, then you know you've done your job.
That is a wonderful question, and I'm going to tell you two things that I think are important right now. A lot of us get griped at occasionally. Sometimes the gripes outweigh the thank you. I really, really believe our elected state officials are good people and doing it for the right reason and almost a calling, because they're getting paid nothing. Most of them are losing an awful lot of money to do this. Everybody in here this weekend can write a thank you note to your state rep and to your state senator and say, I was just at a professional development conference for trustees, and I heard over and over again that community colleges just had the best session they've had in over a decade. That's the truth. We did. Was it great? Are we all a ton better? No. But it is the best session that we've had in a decade. Send your rep, send your senator a note and say thank you. Don't gripe at them. They get enough of that. You tell the truth, but when you can, take the opportunity to say thank you. I don't know about all of you, but when I've had a bad day and I get a nice thank you note, it puts a smile on my face. I really think it does the same to them. The other thing I'll tell you about, I don't have my badge on, so I don't think I'm an employee right now. Anybody know how much it costs to run a race for a state rep on a contested one? Easily a couple of $100,000. Anybody know how much a Senate race costs? Easily I think $1 million's a good number. How many of you are hosting fundraisers for your good state reps and state senators? Smart. you can't buy votes. In no way in the world am I implying that whatsoever. But you can get access to tell your story by being involved in fundraisers for the great elected officials that we have. The college presidents have to be very careful on this. Our great trustees and our great foundation board members don't. And just about all of us have one or two in one of these that have the resources to do some nice fundraisers. It's hard for these elected officials to do this, and for the great ones that support us, I sure hope our community colleges are working hard to help them have the funds they need to run the right type of races. I think that's another area where community colleges have been extremely weak the last couple of decades, and I think that's also one of the reasons why our funding has been so low. Again, not that it was intentional, not that you have to buy your way in, but it's how you get your message across and you get access, and we've got to start playing more in these games if we want our situations to change.
Well, I don't know how that evolved into policy making, but I'm glad it did, being an adjunct that teaches policy and politics. So I think for those in the coordinating board, I think that would probably also be a good session to talk about as well on the politics of having trustees involved in that process. I must add, emphatically with the presidents in terms of the priorities that are developed. I do want to say that CAT, TAC, and TCCTA, so the Texas Community College Teachers Association, along with the Community College Association of Texas Trustees and the Texas Association of Community Colleges, which is representative of the presidents, will be meeting together as those legislative executive committees to come up with some priorities. And those will be shared with the trustees because, as the gentlemen have said, I mean, y'all are 400 plus. They are 50 at most. And so knowing that we have that leveraging ability, I think is very important, and utilize that to the best of your ability. Again, obviously in conjunction with your presidents and very much aligned with what they feel are the needs for their campus. We are out of time, right? So any closing comments to leave with this group? I know.
There's a lot of things we didn't cover. There are so many things we didn't cover. But I think if I were to leave you with a parting comment, I think it would be about communication. One of the most important things that needs to happen for you as a board member and for your institution is the communication that you have with your CEO, your president, your chancellor, and that the message are sent and received, and that you develop a strong relationship with your president. Because when you have that relationship, when you have that trust with your president, there's not anything you can't ask your CEO, and there's not anything your CEO wouldn't do to help you understand what needs to happen and what information you need to have to be successful as a board member. So I would say, as a new board member, I know you've been exposed to a lot of new jargon, and you're drinking from the fire hose right now. I understand that, but it's okay. That's where you're at as a board member, and as you grow as a board member, some of these things will come along and it'll make more sense to you. But I think at this point in time, great communication, great relationships will ensure the future of your organization.
I've worked with Board of Trustees for 25 years now, and I have the absolute best group right now that I have ever had in my career, and I can't tell you what a joy that is when you have a group that debates with vigor. I mean, it's Jim Collins, good to great. Debate with vigor, talk about everything, share the information, the good, the bad, but leave united. You can get so many great things done when you have a board that likes each other, trusts each other, likes the administration. There's no gotcha mentality. We're going to take chance, we're going to take risks, but we're going to do it all together. So I encourage you to work hard, as Dr. Shelton just said, to build that great relationship with the president or chancellor and among all the members of the trustees. Not that you're always going to think the same or vote the same, but that you're always going to believe in that college and community where you are and do everything you can to move it along just as much as you can. It's really fun when you've got people that like each other working towards common goals.
Thank you. I just want to thank the panelists again. If you all will help me thank them. And I just also want to say there is a flyer on your round table that has the information on the CAT conference, at least in terms of saving the date. I want to say and express sincerely that we welcome individuals like yourself coming on to CAT, maybe serving in a role. We look for diverse voices in geography and small, large, medium-sized campuses. So please consider that as you look forward in terms of the future and what other leadership roles you want to play. Thank you so much.